Well, greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. We once again come across another Resident Evil film this week on the podcast. This, of course, being the fifth Resident Evil live-action film produced and, in this case, also directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, Resident Evil Retribution. I think it's been about 2 years since the last one. These things have been coming out on somewhat of a regular basis. Well, not so regular. First one was, I think, 2002, if I remember off the top of my head. And, well, to sum up this one, it's kind of a mess. And, just to remind you guys, I'm the guy that's kind of defended a little bit the Resident Evil movies. Not saying that they're respectful of the games, because they're not. Just to remind you guys, my interpretation of the movies is that this is kind of like the ultimate Marvel universe of the Resident Evil, where they take things and they kind of change certain things about the Marvel universe around. Characters are characterized differently, or they have different roles. Superheroes have, their backgrounds are very different. Their characterizations are very different. In some cases, their ethnicity and looks have been completely revamped, and then the setting is very different from the regular Marvel universe. And that's what I think the third film that's what I took this as. This Resident Evil is the ultimate version Resident Evil. It's a different universe completely, a different spin on the characters, and that's my way of kind of separating why these are not very good, faithful to the games, but yet they're still kind of like, if it wasn't a Resident Evil film, I think a lot of the people that criticize these movies would enjoy them. If it was like, I don't want to use the word Biohazard because that's also Resident Evil. If it was like Zombie Strike or something like that, the characters were, it wasn't the Umbrella Corporation, it was the Z Corporation or something, all that stuff. I think a lot of the people that actually normally trash these movies would be loving it. But I digress. With that said, me being the one that kind of defends the series occasionally, this is kind of a mess from a story point of view. The action's fun and enjoyable, and if you're looking for this to watch stuff blow up, it's that. But it's the story connecting the action, and therefore also somewhat investing your emotions in the action, is really kind of like, ugh. And I'll put it this way. The movie is, if you haven't seen the other movies, you're going to be fucking confused. And if you haven't played any of the games, you're going to be really confused. Because they do not explain shit in this movie. And I think I know why. They crammed, I think when Anderson went to write this, he wrote it with the idea that he was going to bring all these characters, and probably more also the actors, back that he enjoyed working with. Kind of a big, hey, let's show everyone around. I already introduced cloning into this franchise, so it shouldn't be a big issue now to have all these clones. And I agree with that. You kind of already had established that you can clone an entire army in some of these facilities. Sorry about that there, got a little thirsty. You already established the whole cloning thing in the third movie. Therefore, in this one, to bring the fact that the Umbrella can clone people, it's like, okay. And they're only cloning like people that were previously established as Umbrella employees, which even they probably could have stated it outright just to make it clear to the audience. Because again, if you haven't watched this movie, you'll be like, well, who's this guy? What's this black? Not this particular movie. I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the previous movies, you're like, why is she shocked to see him or her? Like, they could have used some more exposition. Just like to have Ada Wong go like, oh yes, she goes, oh yeah, you're one of the 50 clone types. So it's like, she should have added another sentence in there. This is what I hate when I spot this stuff, where it's like, if they added one more sentence, it would have fixed the plot hole, or the explanation would have been clearer. Like, well, Umbrella took DNA samples of all of its top security operatives. You included, so you became one of the 50 models. And she went, oh, that's why. And then they probably could have used that after she also ran into that crew of clones. That's when they probably needed that explanation. And she go, oh, that's why I'm seeing Rain and One, who does the security operatives from the first. Well, no, obviously she wouldn't say from the first movie, but that's why I see them. The Umbrella cloned them. Okay, I would have bought it. Yeah, but they didn't say it. I get underlying. I can piece that together myself. But it's kind of like there's a lot of stuff like that where they really need to add a few things to explain, and they do try to cram in a lot of exposition. But I think, again, the problem is, though, they have crammed in a lot of characters. They brought a ton of characters back through cloning and through this kind of, I guess, people that Anderson liked. And at the same time, I have a feeling this was a really rushed production. Even though it was a high budget, it had all these, great visual effects, I have a feeling the filming and the scripting was very rushed. Anderson had a big cast he wanted to put into the film, and at the same time, I think Capcom and the studio were probably putting on pressure that they wanted this movie out by fall 2012, because of Resident Evil 6 coming out. They were probably more, flexible with the exact date, but they said, no, we're having a new Resident Evil movie game come out. We really want to push this for fall 2012, so everything's kind of tied together somewhat. They have Damnation coming out as well, the CG movie, and of course Resident Evil. So they had this all kind of put together to have like a big Resident Evil extravaganza. And so I have a feeling that the script wasn't quite finished, or if it wasn't quite finished, or if it was kind of finished, that they wound up cutting out a bunch of scenes in order to get the filming done quicker. I have a feeling that one of those two things or both happened, because there's just a lot of stuff that you're like, wait, what? How's that? Now, because I know the games, because I know the movie series both quite well, I'm kind of able to fill in the blanks a lot. But if you're not a huge fan of the Resident Evil movies, especially if for the kids that are like 16, 13, that age range, who probably haven't seen maybe the first two movies, and are finding out, I can see an army-rated movie now. I'm gonna go see this Resident Evil, zombies and stuff. Maybe I've seen the third one or the fourth one. You're gonna still be like, what the fuck's going on? And if you play the games, if you haven't played all the games, you might be confused. Like, for example, they introduce the Las Plagas, and first you see them as the Russian zombies. So you're like, Las Plagas bioweapons unleashed. They don't explain what the Las Plagas is, and later on you see Rain inject herself with a Las Plagas parasite, and you hear Leon go, it's a Las Plagas parasite. They don't explain what Las Plagas is. Like, they could have incorporated that into the plot. How should I put this? Well, you know what? To explain that, I need to explain the basic setup, because really the promotional material lied a lot. So we're going to get into some minor spoilers ahead right now, just to give you guys fair warning. So I think you've got my kind of general idea that this is... if you really just want to turn your brain off, you just want to watch some stuff people shoot guns and see some gore, it'll float your boat. But the plot's really confusing unless you're a big fan of Resident Evil and of everything Resident Evil. If you're a big fan of everything Resident Evil, you can kind of draw the lines. There. From here on out, we have official spoiler warnings in effect. Alright. So, the movie made it seem like Alice was going global. She was going all over the world and fighting all the zombies all over the place. And they were really selling to this. This was going to be like the epic feel. And in reality, I think this was the least epic of them. It was on the least scale, because basically 98% of the movie takes place in one Umbrella facility. And of course, another ridiculous Umbrella. Although this one they try to explain. They actually try to give like a history to this facility. Unlike the Tokyo facility and the North America facility, which are also huge, and I criticize both of them for how big they were. They try to sell off that this is like the Umbrella's main testing facility. That under the water they built these huge domes where they recreate centers of cities so they can test how the T virus were to become spread and how effective it was. And that they said, originally this facility was a Russian sub base that they then built on top of. They expanded it over the years, so they try to give an explanation, I guess, to the size and scale of the facility. Although it's still ridiculous. Like, there's blocks and blocks and blocks of city streets built in these underwater facilities. It's like, really? You couldn't have just, I don't know, put it on an island? Probably would have been cheaper, and I take it Umbrella's the type of... we have to talk about that, too. I'll get into that. But yeah, so Alice gets attacked, from the first movie. They take her to this facility and kind of do, like, the torture interrogation, but Ada Wong breaks her out. And I apologize if I'm getting hit by... going kind of by the plot hit by hit. I know those reviews tend to go rather crappily, but you really need to kind of understand what the plot is in order to kind of understand how messed up it is. And she's like, Alice recognizes Ada, and she's like, "Hi, you're Wesker's lackey." Which, they don't have to explain that. I can buy that Alice would know, like, Wesker's top personal agents were. But, like, they try to introduce that the Red Queen is, like, taken over the Umbrella Corporation, is running all the facilities, and that it's going to wipe out human life, and that even Wesker has been, like, thrown out of the Umbrella Corporation. He's not even with Umbrella anymore. And that they're basically have come in to rescue Alice because she's going to be this weapon. The Red Queen was very clearly destroyed. Now, they could have made this clear that this was an exact duplicate of the Red Queen. They could have just said that again. They're like, well, Umbrella operated a new. We were running short on AI, so we activated a clone of the Red Queen, a digital clone of the Red Queen, or something along that. Or they could have at least, what they could have done? They could have used the White Queen, as an excuse. The AI from the third movie, whose motivations are somewhat iffy. Certainly not the most loyal thing to Umbrella or Wesker. She kind of let Alice have that clone army. I could have bought that. Oh, the White Queen. Yeah, we never found out what happened to that whole North America facility and what's going on there. So, in fact, there's a cloning facility there too. Maybe that's where all these clones are coming from. She used Alice to try to take out Wesker, so the White Queen could take control of all of Umbrella. This makes even more sense. They didn't do that. They did not do that. Instead, they bring back a computer that's supposed to be wiped out. We have no idea where it's hosted. Like, is the Red Queen, where is it located now? Because it was in Raccoon City, but the actual hard drives and the physical devices that the Red Queen was located on, and they made it clear that's where the Red Queen was on these drives, were fried. They disconnected the circuit breaker in the first movie, and they zapped her, and they fried her motherboards. So where the fuck is she then? And then they nuked Raccoon City on top of that. So is she running? Are they really gonna go in the sixth movie and come back to the Hive in Nuclear Wasteland? Anyway, so they've got to run around, and they said Wesker is now sending this other team made up of Leon Kennedy, Luther West. They somehow found like 3 we're gonna die within like the first couple firefights, and Barry Burton. So on top of all these other characters, and by the way, some of the clones have altered. Like, there's 2 versions of Rain running around. I think they even said, like, Anderson said that there's, like, the bad Rain and a good Rain. Apparently they're using, like, the same clones they're using for soldiers. They kind of, like, zap some to become soldiers, and they imprint others to become test subject. Like, they actually say, which does make sense, at least why Umbrella has all these cloning technology, is they mass clone these things so they can test their bioweapons. And they at least also, I think he tried to figure out how is Umbrella making all this money. Is that they somewhat implied that there was secretly a new arms race going on around the world with the T-virus, and that governments all over the place were purchasing it. Because in reality, everyone's getting rid of their bioweapons. You have nukes; they're more of a liability laying around. It doesn't take that much to restart a bioweapons program anyway. So most countries around the world are getting rid of their bioweapons. They're like burning them off. I think the U.S. is almost completely wiped out. But in this one, they're saying no. Secretly, everyone was rearming with the bioweapons. Why? I don't know. Shouldn't you just go with nuclear then if you're? And that basically Umbrella was playing everybody off of each other, and that's why they were funding all these facilities and such. Which, okay, I guess that makes at least some sort of explanation as to why they have this technology, why they're investing so much in these weapons. Is they're secretly kind of doing all this, which is what they said in the first movie, unknown even to its own employees. The massive profits are generated by military technology and bioweapons. So I'll give him credit for that, trying to come up for an explanation as to how Umbrella was really making money off of that. They were kind of implying that Umbrella was already profiting off of the T-virus. And I guess it would also explain why there would be, in the first movie, why Spence would want to sell it. Because obviously if there's all this rearming going on, Umbrella has the exclusive technology. It's like Samsung v. Apple. Somebody wants to get involved. Somebody wants to buy that tech. So I give him a little credit on that, but still, it's like a little ridiculous on the facilities. But in this one, what else is there to kind of nitpick? Not really nitpick. So again, among these things, as they're going through the different test chambers, this is really set up very much like a video game, actually. If you were to adapt any of the movies into a video game, this is the one that feels most like it's a video game. Because there's like, oh, we're in the Tokyo stage. Now we're in the Moscow stage. Oh, we're fighting this type of enemy now. I'll give him credit for that. It feels a little video game-ish without actually feeling like a Resident Evil game, though. Problem there. I know, stop saying But that's when they introduce like the Las Plagas. Like so occasionally, a couple times they'll throw this regular zombies at them, but then they'll throw the Las Plagas. And this is what I think they should have had an opportunity to go. Whoa, what are these things? They're shooting guns at us. Like they don't explain how the Las Plagas are shooting guns, and at some point they needed to say, or somebody through some sort of exposition needed to say, this is the latest adaptation of the T-virus. They adapted it with a parasite they discovered, and this was the ultimate goal of Dr. This is what they continued on with Dr. Isaac's research, and they developed this Las Plagas. Those were the ones we saw. A few even escaped from some of their facilities, and we saw that we met them in L.A. The thing is, these are the most evolved to the point where we can kind of control them. To give us one, if they're going to make a 6th movie, to give us an idea of how the Red Queen is like now using Las Plagas to kind of attack the rest of humanity, which is what they ended on. But that would have been alright. Oh, okay, and that would have told the audience, oh, this is now a new creature. They've explained what the Las Plagas are. That's all they needed to do, was add like a couple sentences right there. Las Plagas, parasite, gives the zombies greater adaptability. You can control them now, but they can also drive stuff and use basic tools. They can fire a gun. That would have been great. That would have been, everyone would have been like, oh, okay, I see there. But they didn't do that. They didn't add that little sentence. They didn't even recognize, like, what are these things? How are these zombies shooting at us? And somebody just go, Umbrella must have finally developed a strain they could control. That's all they needed to do. And then you would have been like, oh. It would have been better to actually explain what the Plagas were, that they were like zombies taken on then with the additional plague parasite. But they didn't. And they didn't explain it in the 4th movie, now they didn't explain it in the 5th movie. maybe in the sixth one. And of course, we also, because they threw all these characters, nobody has character development except for Alice and the little girl. They introduced a new little girl to replace the one from number 2, the one from Apocalypse. And it's very Aliens-like. Like Paul W. Anderson even said, like, this is like Newton and Ripley from Aliens. I'm like, it's not like it is it. You kind of used a lot of the same scenes. Although they do acknowledge she's a clone girl, and Alice is kind of confused at first, but again, in the second movie, Alice was shown to rather quickly adapt to children like children. So at first she seems kind of very weirded out by the fact there's a child around, even though this isn't the first time this has happened. Of course, she is like a deaf clone child that thinks she's her biological mother. Because the Alice clone that was her mother, programmed to be her mother, got eaten by a zombie. Tough life, kid. What was I going to say then after that? I was trying to make a point there on something. Oh. But, like, they don't explain Leon's character. They do kind of, like, hit a bit on the fact that he has maybe feelings for Ada Wong, but there's, like, no other explanation. Like, they don't have a scene where she's like, well, how do you get involved in all this? And he could have gone, well, you know, I was a cop at Raccoon City, you know. Got out of there, and when I was able to get out before they closed the barricades. And after that, you know, the government started questioning me, realized I had some skills, and I became an agent for them. You know, if that's what they wanted to go with, or if they wanted to go, you know, I was a cop. Because they do, again, this is like in the outside materials from what was actually in the movie, like the stuff that was in the promotional bios for, yeah. Again, the only way you can find this stuff out about the character of Leon is if you read the bios that he was supposed to be an RPD officer that had escaped from Raccoon City before the whole nuke happened. Maybe he was off that day. But they don't explain like how he got caught up in all this. And same thing with Barry Burton. They don't explain how he's, what is he? Because, we can't just assume this is Barry from the games, or this is Leon from the games. Because so many of the characterizations are, completely different from their gaming counterparts. If this was, like, in continuity with the rest of the Resident Evil series, then Barry Burton and Leon Kennedy showing up really doesn't need that much explanation. You can be like, oh, okay, I don't know if you guys heard that, but somebody drove by on a motorcycle rather quickly. Yeah, so if that was the case, then you can at least go, okay, it's the Barry Burton from the movie. We've had his story spiel already. Barry is new. Barry is new, and I have to say he also, unfortunately, dies. He gets a quite badass way to go out, though. And I also must say, the guy that plays him looks a lot like Phalis from the video game, the online reviewer Phalis. In fact, I think they should have the voice does not sound like Barry from the games. Unfortunately, I really feel they probably could have gotten Phalis to do the Barry in this movie. He would have been better. And then, of course, and same thing with Leon. We don't know much about him either. He's skilled. He's really good. How he met up with Luther. They don't explain anything. And he survives, but Barry dies in quite a badass way. Luther dies too in a very he's at the final fight. Of course, the big climatic fight, and Rain punches him and stops his heart. Which, okay, I know that can happen. We actually, I remember in town here, a few years ago we had a death where somebody got hit with a baseball bat, not with a baseball bat, but with a baseball in the chest at the right moment, at the right angle, and it could stop your heart. Apparently, Rain knows this kung fu move to do this. So, he just kind of dies in this fight, and just kind of goes out dead, and it's like, no, Luther, and it's like, why were you brought back into this movie? Again, other than, I think Anderson liked the actor, and was like, you want a paycheck? Okay. Same thing with Odd Farrer, I thought there would have been like the good clones who were eventually gonna all team up and fight their bad clones. They didn't do that. The odd Pharaoh clone died in near the opening, the good one at least, and then the bad one just kind of was just standing around there the whole time, like this standing by Jill. Same thing with Colin Simon's one. He's a good actor. I know he's personal friends with Anderson, so Anderson was probably like, dude, you want to check? I'll write your character back and we can give you extra money. And the producers won't even realize I'm just giving you extra cash. I think that's what he basically did. Same thing with like Sean Roberts, who actually I think a lot of people agree. His character is the most faithful from the movie, or from the games. He plays it so over the top. It is enjoyable as hell. We only get to see him a little bit, but at the end, they go back. They get rescued. Alice wakes up and they take her and now they're taking her to see Wesker, and it's in Washington. And they meet him, and he's sitting in the fucking Oval Office as like there's bombs going off in the background and stuff. And he's just sitting there in the president's chair like he did in the previous movies. Like, well, hello, Alice. It's like, we need you, Alice. I'm evil. Alright, he didn't do that part, but he's sitting there in the Oval Office, and even I like how they had Alice call him out on it. Like, you look quite comfortable in this. It's like, it does fit quite well. Always enjoyable, and then he does this little super special move and re-injects Alice, and it's like, I've given you back your powers, because we need you now. You're the ultimate weapon. She's like, I'm going to kill you. He's like, you might. And he doesn't do the laugh. But they kind of end with her. They go back out on the roof of the roof of the White House, and they go, "This is humanity's last stand." In the next movie, and then they do okay, they didn't say in the next movie, but they do the zoom out, and it's like the four of them, Jill, because everyone knew how Jill was going to get defeated in this one. It's like eventually, see, somebody's just going to rip her little mind control device off. So you had Jill, Alice, Wesker, and Leon there. It's like, okay, this will be the cast for the next movie. They don't explain what happened to Chris and Claire. They're just, she like mentions it. It's like, where's Chris and Claire? As she's being interrogated, and they like don't give her an answer. So I don't know. Maybe Anderson will bring those two back too, but they really don't explain jack shit about that, or like the fact that doesn't Wesker need to eat people? Did they drop that? Or I guess he was like, oh, that's just a little bit of a sniffles you get every now and then. I don't have the need to eat humans anymore. I got better. It'll be enjoyable because Anderson has said he wants to make a sixth one that'll be the final Resident Evil movie. We'll see. And maybe that's why this like doesn't really feel like it's an ending. Like this feels almost more like an episode from a TV show. The Resident Evil show, starring Alice. That's what this feels more like. It really does. This particular movie feels more like it's just an episode from the TV show. This is Alice in her crazy Wonderland. Actually, really, that's what they could have gone with, because the first movie was supposed to be Alice in Wonderland. That was the subtext of the movie, and to its credit, it does a very good job of hiding the fact that it's an Alice in Wonderland movie with zombies. The characters are there, character types. They have the one guy who's always watching, he's always keeping track of the time throughout the entire movie, and he's supposed to be the rabbit, the Red Queen. That one's kind of obvious, but that was the first movie. And if they could have probably done this something like Alice in Wonderland type scenario here, again with this really good subtext, and that you have all these different testing facilities that are different places. There's a suburban one, and there's a Moscow one, and Beijing one, Berlin one. You don't go to those last two, but they were on the map. So it'll be interesting. I guess that's what they're gonna do with the sixth one. It's gonna be them against the Red Queen, and at that, Umbrella's probably wiped out. At some point, they're gonna probably have the final fight between. They'll probably take out the Red Queen, and then it's gonna be a fight between Wesker and Alice finally will get the final showdown again. Because we'll get superpowered Alice and superpowered Wesker, and we'll see who will truly come out on top. I'm just looking forward to have Sean Roberts back as like the main, like with Alice and in the group, because the more you can have with Sean Roberts in the movie there as Wesker, the better. Because I just love his performance. Everyone loves his performance. Even people that don't necessarily like the movie like Sean Roberts in the movie. Or in the movies, I should say. So, I'm looking forward to the 6th one. This is to see if they legitimately wrap it up the series, or if they, at the very end, they go, well, you defeated an Umbrella, but now we have a new enemy to fight. Let him... Also, if you want this to be the final Resident Evil film, Anderson, give us a final concluding ending. Alright, please. Alright, I think I've rambled on quite enough about this particular Resident Evil movie. We've gone on for over a half hour. Thank God I have an enabled account. Nothing really to talk about on the trailer-wise. It's the same trailers I've been seeing for a while now. Probably going to see the same ones up until like late October, when we'll finally get a new holiday packet of trailers to be shown. Let's see what's coming up in the following weeks. I'm going to probably do a Cabin in the Woods review. That might be the next review up. And, of course, the next new movie I plan on seeing will be Dread. Although there's quite a few other movies coming out this fall, which look good. But I think the next one I'm going to see is going to be Dread, which, of course, comparisons to the Stallone film will be unavoidable. But we'll see how that goes. So stay tuned. If you enjoyed the review, please subscribe and like. I could always use those. And, of course, stay tuned for further reviews. Signing off.